Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Media Boat Podcast. Hi, hey, how you doing? Today is July the 21st, 2021. This is episode, 289? That sounds right. 289. If you don't know what the Media Boat Podcast is, we are a podcast about media, and that includes movies, television, video games, and music. Thoughts and news about all of those things, but not necessarily in that order. My name is Matt. His name is Mike.
I'm Mike. He's Matt. This is going to be the longest episode ever because we have a lot to talk about in every single category.
No, I refuse. We're going to cook through this.
Topic.
We're going to be cooking. So let's get right started with it. Let's talk about movies, shall we? Because we always do first. And we always start with the weekend box office numbers. And yes, the big story of this week is that theater chains are pissed at Disney because that Marvel movie did not have the legs that they wanted it to. Black Widow plummets to number 2 with only $26 million this week, sitting at a pretty 131 domestic, but was unseated by your number 1 movie this week, debuting with $31 million, Space Jam: A New Legacy. And that's on top of what it's probably making on HBO Max subscriptions. So yeah, Warner's probably happy with that. We'll talk a little bit more about Space Jam in a moment. But before we do that, let's go over the rest of the top 5 here. Number 3, Escape Room: Tournament of Champions is made $8 million. Number 4, F9: The Fast Saga, another $7.6 million to add to its $155 million total. And rounding up your top 5, The Boss Baby: Family Business with $4.7 million. That's sitting at 44 right now.
Next week, we are expecting F9 to surpass A Quiet Place Part 2 to be the current highest grossing film of 2021. Yeah. Unless Black Widow somehow passes it then.
I would like to see it try, but I don't think it's going to make another 20 next weekend. But I could be wrong. Who knows? Also, speaking of next weekend, we do have a few upcoming movies for you to look forward to here. First up, Snake Eyes, which took me a while to realize that is the Snake Eyes I thought it was. I guess this is a spinoff.
It's Snake Eyes.
Yeah, it's a spinoff of the G.I. Joe franchise that they tried and failed to make a thing. We also have Old, the M. Night Shyamalan movie about people who turn old.
Yeah, turn old mysteriously at a beach because M. Night Shyamalan twisting.
Yeah, this twist. And then lastly, The Comeback Trail.
Or is it? Because I don't see it on the calendar anymore.
Well, then maybe we'll take that one off then.
It said The Comeback Trail was coming out this week at the beginning of the month. I no longer see it on the calendar, so hey, it may or may not actually appear this week.
May or may not actually happen. Well, we'll let you know when that movie is going to be released. But for now, let's move right on into movie news. Our first story takes us to the wonderful world of Hollywood, or larger, Los Angeles, where a lot of movies are shot. Well, on Saturday night, this past Saturday, LA County reinstated its indoor mask mandate as new cases began to rise at levels not seen since April of last year. As a result, several events are already being canceled. A screening of Joe Bell, hosted by Mark Wahlberg, was canceled several hours before it was set to begin. And talent agency WME closed its LA offices for at least a week on Monday. Also canceled were Q&A events for Ted Lasso inside the Tower Theater Apple Store, although 2 outdoor events still took place over the weekend. More Hollywood events and venues may be impacted, including movie theaters, which recently were allowed to open back up with blockbuster releases of F9 and Black Widow. So yeah, these new regulations are all based on the Delta variant of the COVID disease. They're still trying to figure out what the best balance of what to allow vaccinated people to do, how to verify that people are vaccinated, and when masks are still required. And yeah, as long as this is in flux, events related to movies are going to be mixed up for a little bit.
Right. This you can blame the unvaccinated people who are not getting vaccinated or allowing this to continue to spread.
Yeah.
But this is also not the end of COVID stories today.
No, somehow it is not. Our second story is more like the other side, the other end of the COVID effect, where something is trying to reopen with the help of its fans. Studio Ghibli's Ghibli Museum, located in the city of Mitaka in Tokyo, Japan, launched a crowdfunding drive requesting donations from residents of Japan to help maintain and repair the museum. They were only asking for $45 donations each, but amassed 90,000 within its first 24 hours. Over 72, the crowdfunding page has raised $200,000, with 197 days left on the campaign. The museum, by the way, opened in 2001 and features a number of large displays and exhibits, which require a lot of upkeep. The museum temporarily closed last year due to COVID, and then again this year from April to early June. So yeah, an institution over there. I really hope that they were able to clean it up, get it presentable again, so that way people can start visiting.
Yep. They did originally get a grant from the city in order to help maintain upkeep, but some of its exhibits and more their statues and garden are huge masses that take some quite undertaking to clean. And so they reached out to the city, rather to the citizens of Japan, as you had to be Japanese only resident in order to donate. And they came out in droves to the tune of 200,000 in 3 days and blew past their original goal, which I think they were only asking for $50,000. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's 4 times their budget or their initial plan. So, it's a good story.
Yeah, uplifting. Hopefully people will be able to see it again, and yeah, that'll be nice.
Speaking
Now
of
for
good
something that's
stories,
now for something a little less uplifting.
oh, come on. You don't have to slam it like that. If you want to jam it like that.
It's time to jam, everyone. We both made the questionable choice of watching Space Jam: A New Legacy, as it's available on HBO Max in the safety of your home. It's the sequel to Space Jam, the 1996 Michael Jordan Bugs Bunny vehicle based on Nike commercials. That was also kind of just a marketing machine. Well, imagine that, but times 50, and you get a new legacy.
Well, not just 50 years have passed since then either.
Though it feels like it sometimes. No. This is a bad movie. I'm just going to say that up front.
Whoa. Hold the phone. Come on. Can we at least talk about it before you start critiquing it?
I just wanted to get that addressed up front. This thing has one severe core issue for me. And I think that this is something you'll agree with me about, but I could be wrong. For context, I do have some childhood nostalgia for the original Space Jam. Does that mean that I think it's a good movie? No, I don't think it's a good movie. I think it's got a lot of issues. But is it, was it a thing that not introduced, but was it a thing that reinforced a lot of millennial kids of like how fun the Looney Tunes were? Absolutely. And was it something that was interesting because Michael Jordan was interesting? Also, absolutely. But the problem with the sequel is that it's not really about the basketball player here. LeBron James is ostensibly supposed to be the Michael Jordan in this, and there is a pretty prominent B plot about his family, but it just feels buried under the real movie that they're trying to make here, which is, hey, what if the Warner Brothers universe was an extended universe like Fortnite, where we just unite every property we have that all exists in a server somewhere, and virtual Don Cheadle is here, and he wants to become famous off of it. The problem I have with that premise is if the premise of your movie is, hey, doesn't it suck that studios are making algorithmic decisions about creative works, only to make the thing also an virtually algorithmic decision that just shows off all of your IP that you own in your creative work? Doesn't that defeat the whole point?
If you want to make a crossover with Warner Brothers properties, or rather just properties and IPs in general, go watch the Lego movie because they did it better.
The Lego movie is like 1/10 of the way that this thing is. It's closer to something like Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Which is, but Ready Player One at least has the premise of being based on a book that already had that premise, right? Like
well,
it did that
premise
first.
Of having Steven Spielberg on it.
Yes. But like, I think one of my issues with this is that there's no reason they chose to make this movie about a rogue algorithm that is trying to basically rip everybody off. They didn't have to do that. So you could have made your cash grab IP crossover movie without having that be your plot, is all I'm saying.
So what you're saying is LeBron didn't need to be in this film?
I just feel like it's too.
He didn't.
Yeah, I feel like it's two different movies, is what I'm saying. That are warring against each other.
Yeah, when your supposedly main character, you can take him out of the film and still have a relatively interesting story, then he's not the main character.
Yeah. So we do have one compliment to give the movie, and that is that they did course correct on the biggest problem of Space Jam 1. The biggest problem of Space Jam 1 is that Michael Jordan just stands there for half the movie reacting to things. He plays basketball sometimes, but he's not a character in that movie. He is basically like an avatar of basketball that is there to win the game to help win the game. He has a family who ostensibly is worried about him, and he has like other characters in the universe that are ostensibly also worried about him. But none of that is very emotional. There's no emotional stakes in the original Space Jam. It is just interstellar basketball game. Will they win? I don't know. And then when he's kind of plopped back to Earth, literally at the end of that movie, and goes back to normal life, it just ends. And there's not really any like follow-up of like, what did his kids think about this? Were his kids concerned? Was his wife concerned? What is going on with the world of Michael Jordan? So from the jump, A New Legacy establishes, no, we care about LeBron James's family. We want you to care about the son. We want you to care about the family. And we're going to keep returning to that idea throughout, like a good screenplay is supposed to do, to remind you that there are emotional stakes here, not just metaphysical, wacky cartoon stakes. That is smart. The only problem is that core is, like I said, so buried by the meta universe shit and all the video game basketball stuff at the end that you're just exhausted by the end of the 2 hours. So exhausted that I didn't even care about the dynamic between him and his son anymore. I was too distracted by the It Clown standing behind them the whole time, or the frickin' Clockwork Orange dudes. I'm like, why is anything in this movie happening? Like, why?
All right, let's backtrack here. Did you watch the same Space Jam that I did?
Yes.
Like the first one.
Yes, I literally just rewatched it last Saturday.
Right. Because the whole purpose of Michael Jordan's arc is that he retires from basketball and then he goes back to playing basketball because that's his true passion. And he finds it playing Looney Tunes.
What you described is two scenes of that movie, though. There's the scene with the press conference where he does what he did in real life and says that he's going to play baseball for a little bit. There's dialogue. There's dialogue there, and then there's the scene at the end where it's like, oh, it's clear that he's now playing basketball.
The first thing he says when he gets to Looney Tunes land is, "I'm not a basketball player anymore."
Yes, I realize that, but
That's his arc, is that he's done playing basketball and he literally gets dragged into another basketball game.
You can hang lines of dialogue to make an arc, but to make you care is a different thing entirely. And what I'm
Make me
saying,
care. It used his real life like drama
yes, we
of
all saw The
playing
Last Dance.
baseball.
We all saw The
Yes,
Last Dance. We know what happens.
of him going to play baseball and coming back.
All I'm
That's
saying,
like
all,
using his real life, Michael
yes,
Jordan's real life stakes from it.
I am not trying to defend or say anything about original Space Jam here. I'm literally just trying to say that they did a better job with the emotional arc in this than they did then. That's
I
all
don't
I'm
think so,
saying.
because their premise of the emotional arc is LeBron is a bad parent for not wanting his kid to make video games and wanting him to be a basketball player.
Well, it's really like it really hints at that, like there's this cruel cycle thing going on where it's like, oh, he was taught to only focus on basketball and not enjoy his other pursuits, so he's doing that to his son, and the cycle will continue if he doesn't stop it. That's how I read it, and already that is a more interesting emotional arc than anything in Space Jam 1. Yes, he doesn't like he doesn't want to play basketball anymore. Oh, he plays basketball and now he wants to play basketball again. That's 3 sentences. That's not interesting. This is at least an interesting commentary potentially on the dynamics between father and son, and like about like encouraging your kids to do creative pursuits. Way more interesting than the Space Jam 1 did. But that's missing my entire point. My entire point is all that work that they did to make that semi-interesting doesn't matter, because the entire rest of the movie is just such a bright neon colored blur of a mess.
It has an antagonistic problem.
Yes, it does.
Because it tries to paint LeBron James as the bad guy to his son. But then you flat out call yourself the Goon Squad and flat out say, I'm going to erase them when we win. And yet you're still supposed to be considered the good guy in the eyes of the kid.
Yeah.
It's paced weird. It's very clunky.
Yeah.
And the ending stakes aren't even raised until the actual start of the game.
It's amazing how close they try to fit it alongside the plot of the first movie, especially the basketball game. They try to hit almost the exact same beats. Okay, initially, villain team is doing really well. They're overwhelming the Looney Tunes team. It doesn't look good. Halfway through the game, you have the moment where like basketball star is trying to encourage them but can't figure out something to do. But then he realizes, oh, I can do this cartoony thing. If we play like cartoons, it'll work. Literally the same exact beat from the original movie. And it ends up having the same conclusion that ends up working for them. But spoiler, I know, I'm sorry for spoiling Space Jam for you. Yeah, but you're right. The stakes are so low because you know the Looney Tunes, I don't know. It's like, yeah, it never feels like there's any sort of like actual danger because you know how this is going to work out.
Well, no, because in the beginning, LeBron gets sent to Looney Tunes land to build his team. And then there's no stakes for the Looney Tunes to play this game.
I mean, there kind of is. They're set up at the beginning where it's like, oh, Bugs wants them to come back to Toon World. Home. So that's it, though. I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying that there is technically stakes for the Looney Tunes. It's just, it's not that interesting.
But that's not stakes to play the basketball game. It's just stakes of Bugs wanting his friends home. And he gets that completed by the end of the second act.
I guess it's not stakes for them specifically, but it's stakes because they know that all these strangers' lives are basically on the line.
Also, is it established that they know the first movie happened?
It's really unclear. It seems like the Looney Tunes know. The Looney Tunes in their universe seem to be aware because they make several jokes about it.
Right.
It is unclear whether LeBron James is aware. In a world where Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle for the Game Boy exists, you think that Space Jam would have also existed, but maybe not. Also, problem. That's an original Game Boy that does not do color.
No, it doesn't do color.
No, there's a line at the beginning when he's like showing his friend. He's like, I got the new one that does color. So
Oh no, that Game Boy did not do color. That was just green.
Script wise, that's actually really accurate because 1998 was when the Game Boy Color was released. But prop department wise, they messed up and gave him a 1989 Game Boy. Anyway, sorry, just the thing that I noticed. Another thing that I want to talk about here, and I wanted to get your kind of play on it because a friend of the show, Christy, differed. She actually really enjoyed this, by the way. Shrug. We were watching the same movie, believe it or not. One thing that I pointed out that I had a problem with, she was like, no, that makes sense to me. I felt like the villain motivation, and the villain I'm talking about here, the Don Cheadle character, was really muddled for me. When you first introduce that character, it seems like his motivation is, I want to get all the famous, like I want to get the most famous person in the world, essentially, which he comes to some sort of conclusion that that's LeBron James for some reason. To be in all our Warner Brothers media because then it would be a big success. And I guess the end game is sort of there so that he can take credit for it. But he's an algorithm. In what world would he take credit for that? But as the movie progresses, that needle moves because he then has to change track when he starts basically putting the sun in place of him, where he's like, okay, well, if the Sun beats LeBron James in the basketball game, then I will be famous for that somehow, or like I will be. See, that's what I mean about muddy. Like I'm trying to remember what it is, and then by the end of the movie, it's changed again because he comes up with that random idea at the end, like, oh, by the way, everybody's gonna just like disappear. Is gonna be deleted just because I can, I guess. What benefit does that have to him?
Yeah, that's why I started with unclear, like a really bad villain. Your antagonist is really bad. It's what starts off as rogue AI in a sense.
Yeah.
Morphs to destroying yourself because the AI only exists within Warner Media. And when you destroy all property of Warner Media, aren't you then essentially destroying yourself?
It doesn't make any sense unless he's saying that threat is only for the fans that were imported there and not the media properties, right? But he doesn't clearly establish what he means by everyone, right?
Right. Also, that's not how phones work.
Right?
That's not how camera phones work. That's not how cell phones and smartphones work, because I had a problem with that.
I think this movie is a mess for all the reasons why I said already, but also for additional reasons. Like, I just think it's not appealing looking. I don't get why it changes into a CG movie halfway, like in the third act. It's not necessary.
Because,
just,
well, I was gonna say because then you have to draw 2D basketball stars. But
it seems like there's just so many weird choices. It feels like two movies that are fighting against each other. It feels like they tried to make a straight up Space Jam sequel, but then they also tried to make this weird meta universe narrative thing with this algorithm character and all the other, but really it's just window dressing. All that meta universe stuff is just window dressing. It's an excuse for LeBron James to visit Metropolis. It's an excuse for LeBron James to go ride on a dragon in Game of Thrones world. And it doesn't, who is this for? Who is this for? Who is this movie for?
Warner Brothers executives.
Yeah, ostensibly the answer is children, right? But I think on a certain level, kids would enjoy this. But also, I think they'd be confused by a lot of it. They probably don't recognize half the characters in the background. They probably don't.
Just like a big check boxes that they had to fill in.
Yeah, it feels like that. It's the Fortnite of movies. That's what this thing is. It just feels like crossovers for the sake of crossover.
funny you mentioned that. Because of Space Jam New Legacy, LeBron is a new character skin in Fortnite.
Can't make this shit up. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've talked too much about this. Do you have any final thoughts about Space Jam? Obviously, I'm telling you not to see it.
Oh yes, no, obviously,
Yeah.
like see it at your own peril, I guess,
Yeah.
because we can't stop you, but at the same time, warning you.
Yeah.
Um, the another big problem is the stealing of player talent from the first one.
Yeah.
Not really stolen, but rather written in,
They're like mutated.
and they're mutated. Yeah,
Also, one interesting thing that they did with the first one that they don't do at all with the second one. With the first one, you get at least some funny scenes of like, well, funny. I'm using funny lightly here. You get some scenes of some of the basketball stars who have lost their talent be bad on the basketball field or somehow acting in real life like something has changed with them. And there's kind of even like a weird like B plot in that movie about like the league going on strike. I don't know if you remember this, but the league
yeah.
goes
The league went on. The league shut down,
yeah,
and
because
they're changing in the
yeah,
hallway with gas masks.
it's it's an interesting dimension that doesn't exist at all in the sequel. In the sequel, you get to meet these NBA and WNBA stars for like a half minute, and then the next time you see them, they're mutated already,
Mm-hmm.
and you never get to see them like back to normal or like recovered or
Yeah, the actual stakes of the actual humans
yeah,
is low to non-existent to
right.
very muddled.
They needed monsters and they get their monsters and then they forget about the real basketball players that were underneath the monsters once the monsters aren't needed anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird choice. So what I'll say, my final thing is I'll say about it is that they're both bad movies, but ultimately watching them back to back, the first Space Jam is a fascinating thing. It's a fascinating artifact of culture in a way that New Legacy is not. Now, 20 years in the future, will we be looking back at New Legacy and being like, man, that was a fascinating piece of history? Probably. But right now, it's just a reminder of all the things that giant media companies are doing that is just de- denigrating the quality of the media properties, the original art that was created as a basis of them. Is
I'm gonna say no. I'm
you
gonna
don't
fight
think
you
so?
against that
Okay.
because this movie does not have any funky beats. It has no J. The music choice
Right.
isn't there.
It's not the same. Uh yeah, I don't know. It's very easy to go into the nostalgia lens and be like, the first one was better because I remember it when I was a kid. And I'm trying to avoid doing that because it's easy trap that a lot of people, especially with the discourse around these movies, have gotten
Yes.
trapped in this last couple weeks. But what I will say is they are both bad movies. Just this one is bad in a completely different way. That's what I will say.
Um,
Yeah,
Last note: they stole our Michael B.
they
Jordan
did.
joke.
They did. That's a little bit of a spoiler for a gag in the movie, but I can't believe it. Christy literally looked at me after that scene and was like, they stole your joke. You
I
know,
was
great
about to text you
minds.
when I was watching it. They stole our joke.
I was going to say great minds think alike, but I don't know if I should give them that much credit. Let's move on. Out of movies, did you see any other movies? I didn't see any other movies.
I was the only one that mattered this week.
Did it though? Did it really matter? Let's talk about real sports though, after we're done talking about the sport of basketball depicted in the film. Because real basketball happened, and I'll lead with that story as it's probably your biggest sports story of the week. The Bucks beat the Suns 105 points to 98 to win the NBA championship. That's their first in 50 years since 1971. Finals MVP, Mr. Giannis, was the sixth player with 50 points in a finals game. So congratulations to him and all of the Milwaukee Bucks for a good finals.
Come on, say his last name.
And 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 Antetokounmpo.
Yes, Giannis
Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo
Yeah.
is your MVP, Finals MVP. He scored 50 points in that final game. Only the sixth person ever to do so.
Yeah.
He actually went and celebrated by going to Chick-fil-A with the trophy and ordering 50 nuggets.
As you do.
As you do. Also, because it took place in Milwaukee, just outside in the Deer Garden. Yes, that's what they call it. The Deer Garden or Meadow or whatever, right outside the stadium. An extra 20,000 plus fans stood outside watching the game from the outside compared to everyone who was inside. So,
okay.
If you're in Milwaukee area, get tested or something because good thing you got your vaccine.
Good thing. So yeah.
But yeah, this means that the NBA has come to an end.
Yes. Basketball season's officially over.
But the next one will just begin shortly, as next Saturday is the NBA draft.
Yes.
Forward. I think we know who has the first pick. It is the Washington. Who has the first pick here?
You tell me.
No, it's draft lottery. Houston. I think. I'm not getting draft order. Come on. Detroit gets the first pick, followed by Houston and then Cleveland.
Okay.
So someone's going to be Piston themselves because they're going to Detroit Pistons.
So funny. All right, let's talk about other sports, why don't we? First up, meanwhile, in the British Open, I'm guessing this is tennis.
No, this is golf.
Well, see, that's why you have to specify.
Well, I just specify it's the British Open because they just call it the Open.
That doesn't help.
I know. That's why I specified it as the British Open.
That doesn't help either. Anyway, golf, I guess. Colin Morikawa won.
I figured the name should give it away, seeing as we talked about him for.
I don't remember these people's names.
Oh, he won the global championship as the youngest ever to do so. Remember when we talked about that? Well, he did it again.
We did it again. There you go.
Championship in 8 starts. Second win before he turns 25. None other than Tiger Woods himself has done that. So congratulations, Colin Morikawa.
Yeah.
You are the next up and comer. So sign big checks.
Yeah.
Or golf good. Golf low scores.
Golf good. All right. Meanwhile, if you're somebody who likes a different kind of commentary to accompany your football games, I've got good news for you. Peyton and Eli Manning have signed a 3-year agreement with ESPN to headline the Monday Night Football Megacast on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus for 10 games during the season. Now, this will not replace the existing Monday Night Football play call that exists already on ESPN's game. It instead will be an alternate play call that you can watch/listen to the same game with the Manning brothers at the helm.
Yes, it's their mega cast. So they have their much like the Nickelodeon cast and their simulcast and their superhero cast. They'll have the regular Monday Night Football that you know and love on ESPN, but to fill content on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus,
right?
You can get dragged over and watch the Peyton and Eli talk about the game as it goes on as well.
So is this what you're gonna do?
Maybe, because they will be bringing in different sports guests to co-host with them, or really just shoot the shit. I mean, they're not going to be actually at the game. They're going to be doing this from a remote location through Peyton Manning's production company. Can you guess what that production company is called?
Manning Productions.
No, the other one. The other obvious answer.
I don't know. What is it?
Omaha Productions.
I wouldn't have guessed that, but that's even better than what I would have guessed. So that works perfectly. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
All right. That's it for sports, or is it?
Um, the NHL draft will also be this weekend. So hold on to your butts there. But as the draft is approaching, as of today or as of this recording, the Seattle Kraken can officially sign players. They get one player from every team, minus the recent Las Vegas Knights, to fill out their 30-man roster. So check your local team or your fan favorite team to see who's no longer there.
Yeah, you might be upset. Don't hurl things at your television, though you might break it.
Well, like each team can like block 8 to 12 players, but everyone else is free game. So.
Seems risky. We know what happened last time with the Knights when they did this. People were not thrilled.
No, but everyone's up like behind the Kraken.
Yeah,
because Seattle.
Because the Kraken. It's a good name. Alrighty. Anything else in sports before we move on to the first of our television stories? Yes, I was kind of keeping that for the segue, but yes, thank you, because our first television story happens to also be about sports, because as NBC is very happy to tell you, we are a week, actually mere days away from the opening ceremonies of the Tokyo Olympics.
As of this recording, we are 48 hours away from the start of the opening ceremonies. Yes. Different from the start of the opening
actual Olympics,
actual events taking place, because that starts today as of this podcast.
So yeah, needless to say, it's been a busy few weeks in the Olympic circle about all sorts of things that have been happening beforehand. We've tried to gather some of that in a bits package for you, so let's go through it. First up, the opening ceremony, as we mentioned, is Friday, July 23rd. That will be simulcast on NBC and Peacock, so you can see it streaming as well. Softball returns as a sport, the first time since 2008. The U.S. women's, oh boy, you're going to have to help me here. National team. Soccer team lost 0-3 to Sweden in the group stage.
This is not a shocker for soccer, as the last Olympics, they lost to Sweden in the quarterfinals match.
Yeah. Still disappointing.
Well, yeah, it's still disappointing, but this is group stage. The U.S. lost to Sweden as one of the first official kind of group stage games to be played for the Olympics as that gets underway. And rightfully so, both people are freaking out.
Yeah.
Or not, because women's national team.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if they had like better pay or facilities, they might do better.
Yeah. Next up, Diana Taurasi chases her 5th Olympic gold for the U.S. women's basketball team. So we'll see how that works out.
Yep. So that dates her 5th back to the 96 games then?
Yeah.
In Atlanta.
Yeah, I guess so.
So 96, 2000, 2004, 2008. No, it'd be 2000, 2004, 2008.
Yeah, 2012.
12, 16, 20. 16. Wow, it's quite a bit there. So maybe it's not 2006.
No.
Maybe not 96.
Next up, 6 Polish swimmers have been sent home after administrative error sent too many athletes. Oh no, there's too many Polish people.
Too many. So yeah, they sent pretty much all their backups back home.
Yeah.
It was heartfelt. There's some like TikTok videos out there going around of them like waving by as they say goodbye to their teammates as they board the train and flights back home.
Yeah.
But dang administrative errors.
Speaking of people sent home, but for other reasons, 4 athletes at the Olympic Village have already tested positive over the weekend and are now isolating. So not quite sent home, but sent away from everyone else.
Yep. And this is exactly what the Japanese residents, not officials, were worried about. Although I'm sure the officials were worried about it on some level. But the vocal of the Japanese residents saying that they shouldn't have these games because of the spread of not just COVID, but the Delta variant as it's on the rise. Very vocal. Don't be surprised if there's protesting or shouting about it throughout the Olympics.
I'm sure. Next up, other positive tests include head coach of South Africa's rugby team, an IOC member from South Korea, the leader of the refugee Olympic team, and rising tennis star Coco Gauff.
Golf.
Goff.
Coco Golf.
It's got a
The
U in there.
16-year-old. Yes, all of them tested positive before the Olympic Games, and as such, were not allowed to travel and missed out.
Yeah. So from July 1st to this past Monday, a total of 58 individuals connected with the games had tested positive for COVID, according to the organizing committee. Those include contract workers, journalists, team personnel, and athletes. In case you were wondering about the nitty-gritty of this, athletes who are identified as close contacts must take a PCR test 6 hours before a game and test negative in order to compete.
Yeah, so Olympic Village, right there in the heart of the city. If they get close contact, if someone around them tests positive, they have to take a test 6 hours before their scheduled games start, at a minimum.
Yeah.
If not, they could get pulled. I'm just saying.
And speaking of things getting pulled, athletes aren't the only ones. Toyota Motor Corporation, Toyota, has decided to pull all of its Olympics-related TV commercials in Japan due to fears associated with the troubled games, which are deeply unpopular in Japan, as you might imagine, that may lead to tarnishing its name. CEO of Toyota, Akio Toyoda, with a D, and other executives, I want to be clear about that, and other executives will not be in attendance during the opening ceremonies.
That being said, the CEO of Toyota did participate in the Olympic torch relay, but that was back in April.
Yeah, so it was a while ago. And then last little bit here, in case you're wondering about the future Olympics, some of those got decided. Well, we already knew some of these, but one brand new one. After these games, the next ones will be in Paris in 2024. Those will be your winter Olympics. No, that's
regular.
Another summer.
That's summer.
Oh, these are just summers. Okay.
These are only summers.
Then, oh boy, here in Los Angeles in 2028, I just get anxiety thinking about it every time I read
2028 means?
Yeah, no. How bad it's going to be when they're down here. How bad getting anywhere here is going to be.
Well, to be fair, they were pushing for a 2024 Olympics, but then they decided to push it back as to not give potential Donald Trump the Olympic Games.
Yeah,
Although now that they pushed it back,
they could happen. But yeah, no, I'm fearing that day. Then the recently announced Brisbane Olympics in 2032. So yeah, the far-flung future date of 2032.
That's over 10 years away. Do you know where Brisbane is?
It's Australia, right?
Yes, it is. The third time it'll be in Australia. It was in Melbourne in 56, Sydney in 2000, and then Brisbane in 2032. That was just announced today. Officially. It was in an effort to try and curtail major cities from being dominant, major cities, from dominating the hosting of the Olympics.
Makes sense.
Summer Olympics. Seeing as we had London, and then Rio de Janeiro, and now Tokyo, and then Paris, and then Los Angeles. So yeah, we're going back to Australia in 2032.
Yeah, well, we'll be in our 40s, so looking forward to it.
Well, this does give them 10 years to plan and put together an infrastructure for hosting all these Olympic Games.
Yeah. So
much in the same way that I think not Tokyo, Beijing got 10 years as well after 96, 12 years. So because 96 to 2008, they got 12 years in advance notice.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's stop talking about the Olympics, why don't we? And let's start talking
about more of the Olympics next week.
Well, yes, next week. We'll get there.
we will watch a lot of Olympic coverage. Or at least I know you will, because I will be traveling.
I will also be traveling for a few days this weekend, so I will be back and maybe catch some Olympics after Tuesday, but we will see. Yeah, I'm gonna miss the opening ceremonies. I'm going to watch those later, but
You can watch them on Peacock wherever you are.
wherever I
Not
am.
sponsored.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to our second television story here, which takes us to a shambling corpse of a lawsuit.
Hey, this is one of our favorite lawsuits to talk about.
I know we've talked about this a lot. The
Well, we
long-running
can
legal
stop
battle
talking
over
about this then.
yeah. The long-running legal battle over Frank Darabont's profits from AMC's The Walking Dead has finally come to an end, with AMC making a $200 million payout to the former showrunner and his agency, CAA. The original lawsuit claimed AMC had used shady accounting to short Frank and CAA on profits. The settlement resolved all litigation and buys Darabont and CAA out of most of their rights to the IP from the Walking Dead franchise. The parallel fight from the other profit participants, including Walking Dead graphic novel creator Robert Kirkman, is ongoing and is currently scheduled for trial this November, with a June backup date set in case of a pandemic delay. AMC's lawyers say Darabont's settlement doesn't impact that legislation, that is, they're treating them as separate things. So, I guess good. I guess Darabont got his payday, but it does mean that you're not going to see him related to any future Walking Dead anything going forward.
I believe this does mean that they can kind of take off his name from executive producer and creator and anything like that going forward. Because, as we all know, The Walking Dead will not die. AMC just keeps pumping money into that lifeless corpse of a show, and eventually it will die, hopefully, maybe at some point. But yeah, we've been covering this since 2016, I want to say. One of our original stories from way back when, and finally getting a legal conclusion.
Collusion.
Well, it's a settlement, so it's done.
Kind
It's
of.
done. They can't ask for any more. It's done.
Yeah.
Unless they come back and saying, "Hey, you lied. We want more." We found out that that's actually more, and you only gave us a small percentage of it.
Yeah, but probably not likely to happen.
Probably not.
All right. With that, let's move out of news and talk about some thoughts. You have some burning thoughts that you've been wanting to talk about since last week when the show wrapped up.
So we mentioned it last week because it was indeed the series finale last week, but wouldn't get into it due to one, talking heavily about spoilers, and two, it literally came out that day because Disney has moved its lineup around to have premieres on Wednesday. So here we are 1 week later, post finale. You can now watch the Loki assembled episode on Disney Plus, which shows you all the good behind the scenes stuff. If you're like me and you are interested in those kind of things. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the actual show, what they put in front of our eyeballs, Loki.
So what'd you think?
Did you finish this?
I did not. So this is all you.
So you stopped at episode 4? Three. Whatever the Lamentus one was, right?
Yeah.
Where nothing happened.
Yeah, I know you're the one of 3 people now that have told me to go back and finish it, but I have not done so.
I told you to go back and finish it.
Okay, well, other people are telling me to go back and finish it. So yeah, how do you think it nailed the landing, spoilers included? Because I do vaguely understand what was spoiled or what was revealed at the end here.
What is your vague revealing understanding?
My vague understanding from what I've read on the internet is that they were just, by the end of this thing, they were just like, hey, we're going to be straight up with everybody. The multiverse is real. We're confirming it. Yes, we know it was in the subtitle of the Doctor Strange movie, so you kind of already knew this. But hey, here it is, and here's proof that it exists.
Yes, but also that Doctor Strange film ain't coming out till next year.
Right. So we got a while. Until you get to see that. For now, here's an example of what this thing can do.
Not just that, but the man behind the curtain, that behind the whole TVA thing, the whole Wizard of Oz, not at all subtle reference anywhere. It was just blatantly, yes, this is your Wizard of Oz man behind the curtain scene here. Bad guy question mark on that was or will be future Jonathan Majors cast as King. We already knew this. He was going to be one of the big bads for the next phase. We just didn't know how, when, where he was going to show up. So having him at the very end here for the last episode, which, by the way, all lore dump. That last episode is nothing but lore dump. Mainly because the episode before it, episode 5, was kind of your big battle, albeit against giant cloud shadow monster, but a big heavy special effects battle nonetheless. So I'm a bit torn about this because it opens up the MCU and opens up the alternate timelines and opens up the whole mess that comic books can get into. And to keep something that big in a TV show, call it what it is, the TV show, feels a bit underwhelming at times. Because, as we said with Black Widow last week, typically you save your movies for the big earth-shattering events, world-breaking events, world-ending events. To have your world-ending event and literal timeline-ending event in a TV show at times feels like it cheapens the point of it, but at the same time feels like it reached a necessary conclusion, as Loki, who, if you remember back from Avengers in 2012, introduced the world to Thanos at the very end. Here, he's kind of doing the same thing, introducing us to Kang at the very end of his story here. That is also to say that this story is not over, as we talked about last week. There is a season 2 on the way, so all the characters here, they will return in some form or another. So the story's not complete. Although you kind of feel like it should be complete. This is the end.
Yeah.
Or is it? Because does time even matter? Also, comic book shenanigans. No one ever truly dies in a comic book land, especially when they're hugely popular.
Yeah.
The Tom Hiddleston performing in the same role for the past 11 years, 12 years now, I think, plus. To which I say, good for you. Why kill your golden goose? Even though Kevin Feige did indeed try to kill that golden goose for you in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Only to be like, comic book shenanigans. Bam, you're back. So I don't know where I land on this then.
Yeah, so I have a question. Do you think part of your like ambivalence or like fence writing here is because there seems to be a division between what these television shows that Marvel has been doing want to be on face value, but which is in combat with the reality of what they have to be, which is a vehicle to set something else up in the universe? Do you think those things, because they're trying to fight each other in the middle of these things, do you think that's what's keeping these shows from just going from being good to being great?
So, put bluntly, because it's a business, Marvel films are there to sell toys. Yeah. It's there to sell merchandise. Yes. They're there to get you hyped on the characters so they can sell more shit from the characters, but from the film.
Yes, you're correct. But the dream, though, the world that I envisioned when I saw the first episode of WandaVision was what if this thing was just by itself? What if this thing just was like an individual spin-off where they just have some fun in this universe? Of course, that didn't end up being the case. But for a moment there, I had this vision, no pun intended, that this television, this Disney Plus streaming stuff was an opportunity for them to do smaller encapsulated stories. We've been proven wrong. That is not what they're going for here. Is that
That
that's
was not my
disappointing,
vision.
right?
No, that was not my vision. My interpretation of these Disney Plus shows is here are the very whacked out stories because comic book that we can't put on screen because we're just going to lose audience left and right because of it. They need to be broken down into bite-sized episodic forms in order for you to fully enjoy the storytelling that is comic books, as they're usually done by issues on, yes, an episodic line, and not like a 2.5 hour volume of a book, which is what a film can be translated into.
Mm-hmm.
So my aspect of these Disney Plus shows from Marvel is more of here's all the weird stuff that we can't, the weird stuff that we want creatives to have fun with and enjoy. And it's mainly for the diehards with the tangential line that will curtail it back into the MCU, which typically will happen at the very end of how it all connects together. That's why at the end of WandaVision, you had the big battle and Wanda getting the Book of Darkness, MacGuffin, whatever, so she can enhance her powers. So that way, next time you see her, she's more powerful. There's reason behind it. For Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the next time you see Captain America, it's Sam Wilson, Captain America, and there's no question about it. It's just he did end up taking that mantle. It's just here's the story of him taking that journey to take up the mantle.
I guess what I'm saying
For
in a round of
Loki,
yeah,
however, because he's supposed to be dead in the MCU and how it all connects, what it's trying to do, and this is the part that really is confusing to me until we get more down the timeline and can see out the tunnel, is in the MCU, the timeline we're at is post Endgame by 5 years ish. So there's a 5-year gap in Endgame, and then WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier happened. So at least a year, maybe a year and a half post Endgame, which is 5 years post Infinity War. Loki, because he got taken out and through the TVA, is in some kind of other weird timeline outside of what we know as the MCU timeline, because that Loki is 2012 Loki, supposed to be dead by the time we get to Endgame. So when they eventually, and I'm predicting this here, throw him into Thor, Love and Thunder, because I want to see my brother. I need to tell him what's to come. Thor, in Thor, and then he meets like 3 different Thors, including Lady Thor. Spoiler, but not. That's when you have the, hopefully by then, because that's in 2022. Is that 2022 as well? Yes. Yeah, because that's February and then that's May. It's your May release. Doctor Strange is the February release. Thor is your May summer start release. By the time we get there, idea is that book 2 or chapter 2 of Loki may be done by then and lead directly into that. So far, the only Disney Plus show that actually matters is Loki, but on a grand scale, 3 years in the future, 3 years down the line from now.
Well, to rewind a bit, I guess the reason why I'm asking this is because if we lived in a world where they didn't have to be set up, if they didn't have to be filling in gaps, do you think you would have come out on the other side of this enjoying it more?
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
if only because it helps fill the greater lore that is the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Because directing, it's great. I love the acting. I love all the costume designs, the weird different Loki, different variant stuff. I like the whole time jumping aspect because sci-fi time travel appeals to me. We've established this on this podcast. So it's got everything that I like and that I want to see. I liked Loki. This is not me saying I didn't like it. I'm just criticizing it for just for the sake of being like anti Loki. I liked it. I really liked this series more than I thought I would. I like WandaVision better because I think it's a better storytelling vehicle, especially in terms of it being episodic.
Mm-hmm.
But as for Loki, it's the necessary storytelling to propel to the future. It's just that couldn't we have done this in a movie instead of a TV show?
Yeah.
Because with the TV show, you do get those long pulled out pauses, the more scenes to chew because of it, because you have more time to use. And as with the case of episode 3, you end up with stuff that doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, it did help, but you can also get through that in 2 powerful scenes together when you have the right actors. Like
Okay.
the chemistry's there. They just wasn't used to its full effect. That being said, I'd like to see more Owen Wilson.
I mean, wouldn't we all? I mean, that's really the takeaway here. Okay, well, so yeah, so kind of middling, I guess, is what on Loki overall is what it sounds like.
Yeah, middling.
Middle.
Uh, but don't be surprised if I see it on my end of the list because I have a very sparse list so far of what's good TV. That being said, here's your reminder that Ted Lasso is this weekend.
Right. Yes. Way more important things are on the horizon.
Yes.
So exciting. All right. Well, on that note, you have one other thing. So one of these things that you have on the list, I'm punting to video games because it is a video game. Um,
Yes.
but there's another thing that you watched from the Disney Plus empire here.
Yes. Premiere today, so I can talk about it. Watched it, kind of enjoyed it weirdly. Uh, Mentioned it at the beginning of the month. That is the new Turner and Hooch Disney Plus series based on the film, starring Josh Peck of Drake and Josh. Yes, that Josh Peck.
That Josh Peck.
So, spoiler slash non spoiler, Tom Hanks is dead.
Oh no.
And this is his son.
Oh.
So
Chet.
so I do not expect any kind of Tom Hanks cameo to appear.
No.
Because they flat out openly say Bond's been struggling since dad died.
Yeah, he's toast.
Here's your dog. Used to be dad's dog. Now it's your dog. You get new Hooch. And Hooch is crazy.
Oh, I'm sure.
Hooch is quite a hoot. But they did up the ante though. So in the original Turner and Hooch, Turner was just a regular police cop. They upped the ante here because new Turner is a U.S. Marshal, which means more espionage, more hidden away bad guys, more complex crimes to solve, as you would expect in a TV series. You need to not easily wrap it up in 2 hours. It works. It weirdly enough works for me.
Okay.
It has just the right level of goofiness to make me laugh at it, but then also the right level of seriousness to one make me actually believe Josh Peck is a U.S. Marshal and a decent actor at that as well. But also like the right level of between it being a movie and TV, to where the action scenes are very TV, CSI, um, NCIS esque, where they're very fast paced, very high speed chasing. But everything outside of that is very meaty and very chewable scenes. I'm enjoying the non action as well.
Okay.
Also, side romance, which, if I know TV, and I know I do, you'll see these characters hook up around episode 6 and then regret it in episode 7.
Of course, of course.
Because of course you do. But yeah, give Turner and Hooch a try.
Okay.
It takes kind of the love of that original movie and sequel that you love and plays with it. It kind of ups the ante, as you should do. And it's not like a direct rip off, not necessarily a direct sequel as well, even though it is, because it takes place in the same universe with the same characters, but more of a refreshed retelling of Turner and Hooch.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Huh,
I
okay.
kind of liked it.
Better than you expected, and that we always like to hear that.
Yeah, but then again, when you go in with zero expectations, anything can be. It's a very low bar to meet.
It's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, I did not. I wanted to talk really briefly about something that I'm in the process of catching up on. The Owl House is back. So I'm catching up on those episodes right now. We'll report back when we finish up season 2, but it might be a while because, or at least part 1 of season 1 or 2, because they're splitting it into parts, as they did with Amphibia last time too. So yeah, I'll have more to talk about that when I wrap that up. And like you said, Ted Lasso is coming. So yeah, we'll have lots to talk about television in the coming weeks.
I'm
but
glad
for now,
to be back because I just finished watching Royal Pains. After getting through House, I went through other medical doctor show. But on a more lighter note, Royal Pains on Peacock. Enjoyed it. As I mentioned on a previous podcast at some point, put it on by accident. I thought it was a different show, but ended up enjoying it. I think it's like 96 on Rotten Tomatoes. Really good score, really good show. It's a fun, lighthearted doctor show. So if you're looking for something to binge watch, try out Royal Pains.
There you go. All right, let's move on into cancellations and renewals.
All right, what am I no longer watching?
Well, you're still watching, or maybe you're not, Bridge and Tunnel on Epix, as it got renewed for a second season. The Go Big Show got a second season on TBS.
Yeah, iCarly, that competition show on TBS with Snoop Dogg, I believe.
That sounds right. Maybe. Meanwhile, the reboot of iCarly has gotten a second season over on Paramount Plus, as well as The Good Fight will get its 6th season on Paramount Plus. Law and Order for the Defense, the upcoming planned Law and Order series on NBC, will not premiere as scheduled, was canceled before its debut.
Speaking of that being canceled, we need to figure out what show NBC will be plugging during the Olympics.
I know, right? There's got to be one. We'll see, I guess.
Oh, I know what it's going to be. The Return of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh, yeah. You're probably right. They finally reveal what the hell that thing is going to be.
Final season.
Yeah. Oh, man. We'll see. Moving on to a couple deaths this week. First up, William F. Nolan, age 93, was an author, wrote Logan's Run, and a screenwriter, Trilogy of Terror and Burn Offerings, among others.
Yes, that Logan's Run. Not the movie, right, but the book it's based off of.
Yes. And then also this week, unfortunately, we lost Biz Markie, age 57, rapper most famous for Just a Friend, but also an actor, had roles in Men in Black 2 and a recurring role in Yo Gabba Gabba, the kids show. Definitely will be remembered for his just his boisterous personality, fun rapping style, and just that classic video for Just a Friend. That if you have not seen it, it's classic, and you should fix that right now.
Yep, song played at pretty much 85 to 90% of weddings. Just a Friend by Biz Markie.
Yeah, yeah.
If not anywhere you are in a club at some point, it
Just a
will
fun
definitely.
karaoke thing to put on.
Yep,
Just fun. He will be missed. He was definitely a legend.
definitely Just a Friend.
All right, let's move on into music. So I toss this over to you.
And we always start music with the Billboard, and we start the Billboard with the Hot 100. And it's so hot,
Mm-hmm.
BTS is still at the top,
But
but it's not for butter. Oh no. Now they're giving you permission to dance.
wow, thank you, BTS.
Yes, because you need that summer jam, and they provide it with Permission to Dance by
Permission to
BTS
dance.
is your new #1 song. It's so popular, it actually knocked Butter off of the top 5.
Did.
But that does mean that #2 is Good for You by Olivia Rodrigo. Coming in at #3 is Stay by the Kid Leroy and
Leroy.
Justin Bieber. Leroy?
Yeah, the kid Leroy. You moved the
Leroy.
vowels.
Leroy. At #4, Levitating by Dua Lipa featuring Da Baby. And rounding out your top 5, Kiss Me More by Doja Cat featuring SZA.
Mm-hmm.
As for your Billboard 200, your albums chart, at #1, still at #1, Sour by Olivia Rodrigo. At 2, Planet Her by Doja Cat. At 3, Why Is This Back Here? Dangerous, the double album by Morgan Wallen. At 4, The Voice of the Heroes by Lil Baby and Lil Durk. And rounding out your top 5, Hall of Fame by Polo G.
Yep.
Does that all sound familiar to you?
A lot of those are returning.
They're all returning.
Yes.
All right. If you didn't like any of those albums, or if you're sick of Morgan Wallen being up there, we have new releases. And they start with Change by Anika. We also have Spiral by Dark Side. Not That Dark Side. Also, Not That Dark Side. For Free by David Crosby. Yeah, that David Crosby. Ninth and Walnut by Descendants, not to be confused with The Descendants from Disney Channel.
Very different. Yeah.
Or Descendant, that horror movie. We also have Downhill from Everywhere by Jackson Brown. And lastly, Gold Digger's Sound by Leon Bridges. Yes, that Leon Bridges.
Just like saying his name.
I'll say it again if you want me to.
No, you're good.
All right. Let's get into some music news then, shall we? And we start with a TikTok story.
Yeah.
So, market research studies commissioned by the social media darling, ? Compiled by 2 different firms, gives some numeric context to TikTok's impact. A music perception study was conducted in November by MRC Data, and a study about TikTok's impact on culture was fielded in March by London-based Flamingo Group. Both surveys were conducted online, polling nearly 1,500 TikTok users. Highlights from both studies were revealed Wednesday morning in a TikTok blog post. With music discovery being one of the platform's most talked about attributes, it won't surprise most music marketers to learn that 75% of TikTok's visitors discover artists there, while 63% say it's a source for music they've not heard before, and 72% indicating they associate certain songs with TikTok. Case in point, aside from Lil Nas X, whose TikTok exposure propelled him from self-released artist to a Columbia Records contract, The app has also been cited as a key building blocks for the likes of top 5 artist Olivia Rodrigo, Doja Cat, and Megan the Stallion. Quote, the interest is there, and the music industry is buying into what TikTok is selling, said a music industry expert. And this should come as no surprise, as when we randomly see songs crack that top 5 and wonder, where did this come from? Who's this artist? I have no idea where this is. More recently, we can trace those back to TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, this seems obvious, and it should feel obvious from it's where we've ended up with music over the last couple of years. But I included the story because it's interesting to see actual numbers proving how effective it is. In fact, I was talking to some friends over the weekend about what the equivalent was for us growing up. And we were talking about literally listening to the radio on a cassette player and trying to hit record when the song that you're waiting for would come up. Did you ever do this?
No, because I had LimeWire.
Well, this is before that. Like you weren't like 10 or I
Oh no,
guess.
yeah, I did that. Yes.
Yeah, like trying to record something off the radio and you would get the like announcer saying something over the intro and you'd be so mad. So yeah, this is the equivalent. This is the modern day equivalent. Kids will see like watch a TikTok, be like, what song was that? And click on the little link in the corner and stream it on their streaming service of choice. It's like it's an interesting like way to kind of like link the two. They're not like that. It's really the same thing teenagers have been doing forever. Just this is the most modern interpretation of it. And yeah,
it's also the fastest interpretation of it too, because you can see immediately what it is instead of trying to search on your phone or remember it. So when you get to a library or home,
yeah,
kind of like, what was that song again? What were they playing at this time?
right.
You know,
So,
internet days.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it goes to show you like how effective it is at getting your music out there if you're an artist. So yeah, it's quite an interesting thing, even though it's a deep, deep well that is way too complex for any of us old fogies to understand truly.
Well, we can understand it. There's data. We have numbers.
Yeah.
It's the old fogies who try to game said system.
Yes.
And like
anyway,
force your stuff onto TikTok and hopefully it'll blow up, and yet it doesn't, and you wonder why, because you're not hip like the cool kids.
Yeah, just like those cool kids.
Yeah,
what do you think Echo Smith is doing anymore? Remember that song?
No, it's the kids who are out of style.
All right, let's move on to our second story.
All right, our second story is a wee-woo story, an oo-woo story. Ee-woo, woo-woo, it's Britney watch.
Yeah.
That's the alarm.
Yeah.
So, a so-called Britney bill has been introduced in Congress with bipartisan backers designed to crack down on what else? Conservatorship abuse in the wake of the heightened public attention to the issue due to Britney Spears' headlines making court case. But the Free Britney movement is not welcoming it with open arms, because Florida Democrat Charlie Crist and South Carolina Republican Nancy Mace have joined forces in the House of Representatives to introduce the Freedom and Rights to Emancipate from Exploitation Act, aka the FREE Act. The legislation, if passed, would allow individuals who have a judge-appointed private conservator to petition to have that person replaced by a state-employed public guardian. Some in the movement to reform conservatorship complain that the bill still doesn't ultimately address how accountability would be guaranteed, whether individuals end up with a private or state-appointed guardian. And many in the movement believe anything with the potential to create more conservators, not fewer, is a step in the wrong direction.
Yeah. I mean, those are good points, right? Like, this thing really just passes the buck in a lot of ways. It's like, oh, well, at least it gives the person an option if this current conservator is not somebody that they believe is doing them a service, at least they have the option to get them replaced. But if you just have a revolving door of conservators going in,
It's not still solving the main issue at hand.
It's treating a symptom. It's not treating the problem, which I think is what a lot of the people like saying that this is not a solution are saying.
But isn't that always what Congress does? Is they treat the symptom,
Yeah,
and that's why people are always having problems with things getting done in government.
Yeah, I mean, but at least there's some sort of legislation being suggested here, being introduced. It does lead to more potentially better versions of the same kind of bill. So yeah, we'll it remains to be seen what exactly comes out of this. But this ain't it, I think, is basically the conclusion.
Yeah. Also, Britney Spears, in other news, has indeed looked into getting her own lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that is being settled by the end of the month. And I think next month, if I read that right, they are due back in court. I think mid-August. So
Mm-hmm.
more Britney watch to come. But we didn't watch things. Well, I mean, we did watch things. We also listened to things.
Yeah, it's true. You listened to a couple of things. I did not listen to these, so you're on
Did
your
you not
own
listen
here.
to it? I tried to get you to
No,
listen to it.
why would I?
Because it's John freaking Mayer.
Oh yeah, that guy. Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't care.
What's John freaking Mayer?
All right.
All right. So John Mayer put out a new album titled Sob Rock.
Uh-huh.
Or SOB Rock.
Either way.
However you want to say it. It's best summarized by the text that I sent you.
Yeah.
Goddamn 80s funky beats.
Uh-huh.
It is super 80s. There's synths everywhere. There's hard bass everywhere. I think at one point he tries to emulate Phil Collins in Genesis.
Ooh.
He tries to emulate Wham in this, but only in melody and only in song, not necessarily in the lyrics, because there's still John Mayer longing for a relationship to actually work out.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It definitely has the funky beats that I like. It definitely got me interested. I liked listening to it. But at the end of the day, it's still John Mayer, and I don't really care for John Mayer. That being said, it's a well-produced album.
Okay.
I like that it's 80s sound and that 80s synth and like even 80s pop rock, soft rock. It's all in here.
Yeah.
It feels like he was on an 80s kick on his like iTunes or Spotify. It's just like, I'm just gonna do this. And it works. People backed him. It works. Mm-hmm. It's very much exactly that. It's very 80s, you know. Everything is in a circle, so maybe he's ahead of something, coming back around to more synth pop in this coming decade. Maybe we'll look back and say, hey, that started the new trend.
Maybe.
But for now, it's the old trend of the 80s.
Right. Yeah, no, that's ultimately what I've heard from other sources as well, where it's like, yeah, it's well produced for what it is, but like ultimately your mileage may vary on John Mayer, the person, and that's gonna really color your view of this thing. He's just said so much dumb shit at this point. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't care. But anyway.
Yep.
But that's not the only thing you listen to. You listen to something you were very excited about.
Yes, that we didn't talk about last week for some reason or another.
Just slipped your mind, I guess.
Well, I didn't put it down. That's why. If I written it down, then yeah, we would have talked about it. But I didn't. And ultimately, because I didn't write it down and because it did kind of slip my mind, that can basically sum up the album that is The Last Resort by Midland.
Uh-huh.
So this is an EP, their second EP following earlier this year, The Sonic Ranch. This is The Last Resort. And I'm a big Midland guy. I like Midland. They're my up and coming band. They are third build at Stagecoach on day one. So they're up and coming. They're gonna get there. I just wish it was more stadium sounding than what I got.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that if they want to take it to that next level, this album is not that level.
Mm-hmm.
This is more of what you know from Midland, more of what you would come to expect from country band in a bar. Lots of kind of low notes, heartfelt songs, breakup. They like are gonna corner the breakup market at some point here with songs. Meanwhile, Dan Shay cornering the love market with their love songs and winning Grammys for it. Damn you, Dan and Shay. But Midland, the last resort, it's fine. It kind of works as a companion piece to the Sonic Ranch, sort of how they started and where they're at. It's a more clean, more polished EP. Uh, but that said, I enjoyed their previous full album,
Mm-hmm.
Let It Roll, more than I did this latest album, Last Resort.
Fair enough. But it's an EP. APs are an opportunity for artists to do something a little different, to do the real thing when their next real record comes out. So maybe that's
right,
what this
but
is.
this is their second EP in a row, though.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're ramping up. Maybe they need this arena energy from the shows that they're going to play to get prepared.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. So I saw them 2 weeks ago. They put out this album, I guess, last week. Then
Mm-hmm.
officially. So yeah, that's why it's on here. Then it's when I saw them, they were very clunky. They lost lyrics. They forgot lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
They missed some notes. Definitely felt like an opening, uh, like coming back into getting used to playing in front of live people again.
Yeah.
And a lot of people for that matter. Uh, but when I see them come next year at Stagecoach, I expect a bigger, more arena style show because it is built out at Stagecoach for a more bigger, more arena style venue.
Yeah.
At least that is my hope.
We'll
I've
see.
hitched my horse to their wagon. I've bought my ticket for them to go to the moon eventually. I'm just waiting for it to happen. They're my lottery ticket of the band that makes it.
Right. Well, we will certainly see what happens. So I remembered that I did listen to something. What jogged my memory was you talking about how you were expecting a different sound than what you got from your EP that you listened to. Well, the same thing happened to me with Clairo's new record, Sling. So we talked about last week. This is the Jack Antonoff produced thing that he did with her. So if you're not familiar with Clairo, she got a big single 2 years ago off of her first record. That was kind of a poppy kind of 90s kind of thing. It was kind of lumped into the whole like bedroom 90s pop thing that's now come out of nowhere to be incredibly popular. Your Clairos, your Biba Doobies, your MXM tunes. Am I speaking another language, or do you understand what I'm talking about?
Nope. You see all the stuff like going over my head right now?
Anyways, never mind. Anyways, so Clairo like was on the trajectory, or at least I thought, to be one of those artists, like kind of TikTok bred, kind of like a pop artist. Well, get ready for the curveball, because Sling, her record that she did with Jack Antonoff, is a folklore style left turn for her. It is a folk record. It is a folk record, even more folky than folklore. It is a record that sounds like it's sprung out of a 1975, I don't know, like a Joni Mitchell session or something. It's very low key, very low tempo, very languishing, like folk record, like 70s folk record. It's very not what I was expecting. And I don't know if I liked it. So you're right. I think I was going in the same way you were into the Midland record, where I was like ready for something fun and summery, and it's not what I got. And so I think that some of the disappointment that I feel kind of came out of that misplaced, like seasonal kind of feeling for me. Because when I think of summer music, I want that fun poppiness. This is not that, and so I think it really caught me off guard. Um, it's
Right.
well
Especially
produced.
since last year's summer pop albums were all
Yeah,
bangers.
right. Yeah, ironically enough, maybe we're seeing everything that got recorded last year. Is maybe
Uh,
that's why. Um, so yeah, it's not the vibe I was looking for. I think Claro is a good musician. I think she has a good ear for the kind of production that makes these kind of songs really sing. But it's just a direction that I wasn't prepared for, and I don't know if I'm jiving with right now. Maybe if I put it back on in October, maybe it'll work better. You know, maybe it needs a pumpkin spice latte to really click. We'll see when it comes to the fall. But for now, it's just I wasn't impressed. But it seems like critically, this thing is getting raves. So I think people really like what she's trying to go for. Definitely sets her apart from her contemporaries. For someone who has been kind of put on a Zoomer pedestal, it's very non-Gen Z sounding, and so it is a capital C choice for her to make something like this for her second record in her career. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I respect it, but is it something that I want to listen to? Probably not. So that's Claro. Uh,
so
okay.
listen, pass. Regards, mileage may vary.
Yeah, exactly. Mileage may vary for all these things, I guess.
Yep.
All right.
And they're all very different genres too.
Very different.
We listen to everything here.
We try. We try to have a wide swath of things. All right.
Oh, one last thing, mainly for you. We took your advice and we listened to Haley Witters.
Yes.
Probably got hooked on her. May or may not. We'll see.
That album's real good, isn't it?
Yes.
The
That was
thing.
real good. Listen to her whole discography because of it after it.
It's real good.
Pretty good.
She's real good.
Yep.
Anyway,
So yeah, that's another Stagecoach not headliner, but artist.
she's somewhere in the middle of that pack. She's not the most capital letters, but she's pretty decently sized in there.
She's also day 3, so
Yeah, so that's something.
something. Working your way up.
Yeah.
All right. If we have anything else.
I think that's it for music. Let's move on.
All right. Actually, this may not end up being the longest show ever.
What did I tell you?
Oh, wait. It may still be because we have video games to talk about.
Me too.
All right. We're going to start with Last Stop for the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Switch, PC. If you got it, you can play it. Last Stop.
Yes.
We also have Orcs Must Die 3, because you didn't do it the first 2 times.
No, they didn't die.
For the PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PC. Notably, the PS5 is missing on this.
Nope.
Next up, Alchemic Cutie for the Xbox One and Xbox Series X. The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles for the PS4, Switch, and PC. I believe that is based off of the Ace Attorney series, but
yes.
a prequel.
Yes, it's a prequel. It takes place in like the 1800s.
Mm-hmm. We also have Microsoft Flight Simulator. If that sounds familiar, you should already be playing it, but this one comes out for the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, so this is a Series S and X release. This is a console release. The PC version's been out for a year. But hey, Series owners can finally give it a spin.
We also have Neo, The World Ends With You, the sequel to The World Ends With You for the PS4 and the Switch. But if you're lucky, it might have dropped early for you.
Yeah, so that I didn't include that news story because the other 2 news stories were bigger. Oh, yeah, but yes, some people who pre-ordered on Switch got the codes early. Shouldn't have. They've now been revoked. But don't worry, new codes will be on their way on release date, is what I've heard.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's the game I played the demo of a couple of weeks ago and talked about. I probably will not be picking up the final version. Maybe not for me, but hey, it could be cool.
Also pretty cool if you're into it. Samurai Warriors 5 for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. No next gen yet.
Nope.
There's also, because it's never ending release of releases here,
Yeah.
Splitgate Arena Warfare for the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. Sorry, Switch and PC. You'll get it later, maybe, hopefully,
Maybe.
probably. Uh, there's also Winds and Leaves for the PS4. Tribes of Midgard for the PS4, PS5, and PC. And lastly, the big release question mark, because it's also free.
For you.
Free for you. I mean, there is like a $250/$300 entry to get it.
Yeah.
Barrier of entry. I'm sorry, wait, plus, because don't you need online to play it as well? It's an extra 20
Yeah.
on top of that.
Might be your first thing you play on your new OLED Switch.
Maybe. It releases today. We will talk about it later. It is Pokemon Unite for the Switch.
Yeah.
That's the Pokemon MOBA game.
Yes. We will talk
And
about that in a
we'll have
moment.
some thoughts on it, but we'll get there. Because if you were listening to all these releases and realize that, hey, all of these for the Xbox and PC, I'd love to play them on a PC, but I'm always on the go, never at home. Or if I am, my kids need to use that PC. And there's just not a dedicated PC console that I can play and just play on my own time. That's not on my phone.
Yeah.
That's not a mobile game.
There's got to be another way.
In the palm of my hand.
Yeah.
That's not a Switch or a PlayStation Vita.
Yeah. But kind of like a PlayStation Vita.
Wouldn't it be great if there was something else like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I could dream.
Or
I could buy the new Valve announced Steam Deck.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I buy it, I may still be dreaming of a day when that would possibly.
Yeah, I'll be looking at third quarter 2022 when I can finally play my Steam Deck.
Yeah, your Steam Deck?
Steam Deck.
Steam Deck.
Steam Deck.
Yep. So Valve officially announced Steam Deck, a handheld gaming PC set to arrive later this year. The Steam Deck, it has a form factor similar to that of a slightly larger Nintendo Switch, but with the capabilities of a full gaming PC, specs to vary. It runs a modified version of Valve's Steam OS, complete with a new console-like interface for easy navigation of both the Steam store and your Steam library. But it also provides access to an unrestricted computer desktop where any third-party applications can be installed, including non-Steam games or launchers. In terms of hardware, the Steam Deck has a 7-inch 1280 by 800 resolution, 60 hertz LCD screen, a custom AMD APU featuring a 4-core, 8-thread CPU paired with an 8 RDNA 2 compute units for the GPU, and 16 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM. It can even suspend running games like a console, and Valve says the intent is really to give players access to their entire Steam library on the go.
Yeah.
The only caveat here, which you don't have listed, is that they sell the Steam Deck at 3 different intervals for the 3 different hard drives.
Right.
And depending on which hard drive you get, you may not even be able to download your game. As it starts, the starting point is a 64 gigabit hard drive, which, yes, is low for any AAA game.
Yeah.
It can go up to 256, I think. It's not at 500 yet, right?
I think it's 512. I think it
Is
is
it
512.
512? So it's,
One
yeah,
thing to
64.
note here, one thing to note here is that all of the units do have SD card slots, so you can expand this memory just like you can with the Switch.
Mhm.
But yeah, just know that the internal memory is going to be fairly low if you're a power user.
Right, but I mean, you're going to want it on the hard drive so you can at least
Right.
run it properly and not
Right.
delve with saves. But yes,
Yeah.
you can take your Steam library on the go.
Yeah, I think this thing exists on the intersection of really good idea and hardware reality. And what I mean by that is for years people have been wanting a device like this, a way they can play their Steam library, say on the couch in the living room by looking at a handheld. There are third-party devices that do this. A lot of technology companies in China have made kind of names for themselves by making devices like this that are not officially licensed by anybody. And of course, the PlayStation Vita and the Switch have both basically grown reputations as PC indie game systems, essentially, for their ease of use for playing games that you would typically play on the PC. So there's a market for this, and there's a reason why Steam wanted to make it. But like you said, the problem that people are realizing is that there's a reality of the thing you can actually make. You kind of run into a wall in a lot of places. You run into a technology wall. It can't be the most powerful computer in the world. You run into a pricing wall. It's going to be expensive. This thing starts at $400. You also run into a memory wall, like you said, like you can only hold so much into a hard drive on one of these things. So basically, you keep running into these technological hurdles, not to mention that we're also in a period of time right now where sourcing like parts to make these things is going to be not as easy as it would have been if they had introduced this in a non-pandemic world. So on top of that, you also have sourcing issues where people who have ordered this thing might not even get it until beyond over a year from now. So what it's created is this like demand for a product that maybe won't even be viable until the end of next year. And yeah, it's a wild thing. It's like, yes, this is something that sounds good. Like honestly, I would have possibly bought this if I hadn't bought a computer last year, because it's a lucrative price point for playing the games that I wanted. It solves the problem that back then I wanted solved. It just didn't exist yet. Now that it does, I still don't regret buying this computer because now I use it every day for work and it's great. But if I hadn't, it definitely would have been more lucrative. But now it's kind of just seems superfluous. But you're right. It is going to solve a lot of people's problems if they have a reason why they can't sit at a PC all the time to play games. So yeah, I think it's a good idea on paper, and I think I'm glad that Valve made it. But there's going to be a lot of hoops to jump through technologically for this thing to work the way you want it to.
I mean, it does also say it can run non-Steam games or launchers. First one that comes to my mind are the MMORPGs. And how you use literally the whole keyboard, but needs to be pared down to just several button pushes.
Well, I mean, they do kind of get around that with a lot of customizable buttons on the surface,
custom mapping,
as well as custom mapping touch pads. So there are ways they could do it, but you're right. It's not going to be the same experience. You're not going to play Final Fantasy 15 on this thing. Or sorry, 16, 14 is the MMO.
Online.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for you to do that. Apparently everybody in the world wants to do that right now. So yeah, maybe there's going to be a use case. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. It'll be very interesting watching next year as it kind of gets a user base, how big that user base is going to be, how Valve actually supports it, and what people think of it when they get their hands on it.
I mean, Valve has a history of supporting the products it created. I mean, just look at its VR headset.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, they have done an okay job with the index. I know you're making a joke here, but the index actually has carved out its own little niche. It's just that it marketed itself on purpose as the higher end VR headset. So it's basically by design not as popular as what HTC has done with theirs, with the Vive. So
I'm just saying,
I know. Hey.
could be another dud. Speaking of things that could be another dud, hello Ubisoft. What kind of turd did you pop out lately? Oh
Well,
man.
it's more like what they haven't.
Well, I mean, it was supposed to pop out, and then they changed it, and then they changed it again, and then they changed it yet again, and yet it is still not out. So the once supposedly Assassin's Creed spin-off centered around Black Flag's ship combat has ultimately turned into its own game called Skull and Bones. Cool. Except it hasn't seen the light of day in basically forever.
Mm-hmm.
However, a new report from Kotaku kind of explains why. The game has been going through development hell for years thanks to repeated changes in vision and has been at the center of some of Ubisoft's long reported workplace toxicity. The summary is that according to the site sources, Skull and Bones' repeated delays have come due to major shifts in the game structure over the years, leading to a lack of meaningful progress in development and an exodus of developers at Ubisoft's Singapore studio. Originally projected to launch in 2018, yeah, 3 years ago, Skull and Bones has seen multiple release windows over the years. Ubisoft has pushed it from 2018 to 2019, and then to 2020, and then to 2022, and now it's sitting at a projected release date, a window before March of 2023, basically close the fiscal year. According to a statement uh, issued to Kotaku by Ubisoft, Skull and Bones is just now getting into alpha phase after not one, not two, not three, not four, but 8 years of development. To which you say, you could look at this and say, hey, 8 years of development, that's great. There's no time crunch on it. They can take their time, they can form it to how they want. To which people will take the case and point and say, Kingdom Hearts, 13 years of development to finally release. To which all those people will then point to you and say, Duke Nukem Forever, 15 years of development, and we
Yeah.
got that. So, being in development for all those years is not necessarily a good indicator of how good the game is going to be. As the article had mentioned, Skull and Bones was originally going to be an expansion of the Assassin's Creed Black Flag because they liked the ship combat so much. But then they didn't know which direction to take it. Were you going to be all ship all the time, or some ship and some captain, and like some kind of variation hybrid? It went through very many different phases and a couple of directors and development teams. We don't know where this thing now lies because it's in the alpha phase, meaning it's not released to the public yet. It's not in a beta phase testing phase. It's still in alpha, it's still in development.
Yeah.
8 years development. Also, in those 8 years, we've seen two different console cycles. Black Flag was a PS3 game. And so they had to then develop it for the PS3, change it to the PS4, and then now, I'm just using PlayStation as an example, change it again to the PS5, and then to the Xbox Series X, and probably Switch, and whatever new no PC end is, probably have to switch engines a couple times as well. So if you're pointing to development hell, Skull and Bones isn't a proper name for this thing because it's, I won't say dead on arrival, but damn, is it nothing but skin and bones?
Yeah, it's been drowning and it's slowly coming up back to the surface. Yeah, this is the danger, and a lot of people talk about this around E3 time. This is the danger that you take. This is the risk that you take announcing a project really early in development, because these things happen. These are the realities of game design, especially big AAA game design, right? If you announce something, you're going to get fans excited. And if fans don't hear from it for a very, very long time, they're going to think it's dead or in trouble, or they're going to freak out, and you're going to get the bad end of that. We all know how rough the last decade has been to Ubisoft, though. They've been through the ringer at this point, and it's not ending anytime soon. So it doesn't surprise that all this stuff has happened. But it goes to show you, just hold off on that announcement. Just hold off a little longer on announcing that game that you're really excited about, even though you're really excited about it, because you don't want to show them one thing only to change the entire like status of it later. Ubi is also going through this with Beyond Good and Evil 2. Related to this is a document that they put out, which basically said like what they're going to show in the next showcase that they have, and they said that they're going to reintroduce Beyond Good and Evil 2. It's like they've done that twice already. Another example of the same problem. They have to wait. And so, yeah, as good as Skull and Bones could be potentially when it eventually becomes a real game, it's too far off to know. And they did this to themselves.
Cyberpunk 2077.
Yes, exactly.
And that was CD Projekt Red, I guess previously well-respected publisher.
Right. Yeah. Once upon a time, people were very excited for that game.
Right. And we're not dealing with a well-respected publisher. We're dealing with Ubisoft.
So yeah, it is what it is. Someday we might play it, but yeah, nonetheless, an interesting kind of, I guess, warning to those studios out there that are champing at the bit to show this new thing that they just came up with, just conceptualized, that they have a logo for and nothing else. Maybe wait.
Well,
anyway.
While we wait for that, we can wait no more as we come to the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
And with that, it's time to talk about the thing I'm excited to talk about.
Real quick, before you do, I just want to mention the thing that we punted from television. Yes. Not really sure we had on television. It's not
because baseball. It's baseball related.
So Blaseball, which is not baseball, it has nothing to do with baseball. It's very, very different. So which we talked about on the podcast over the last year, just turned a year old on the 20th. And so I'm wearing my Blaseball, my tacos shirt in honor. Yeah, just want to briefly talk about, there's not really much to talk about here, just a nice anniversary to celebrate. But I just want to mention that thing has gotten way weirder and wilder even since its inception. So if you just want to get a taste of it, if you look up Blaseball on Twitter, it was a trending topic yesterday for the anniversary. A lot of people were sharing
fan art.
Yeah, fan art, fan stories, fan things that they like, fan merchandise that they've made. This is fan merchandise. This is not official. And yeah, just the amazing stuff that the fan community around Blaseball has put together. If you don't know what Blaseball is, just give it a quick look. Click Google and you'll find out more about it. But yeah, the year is strong and it just keeps going, keeps getting weirder and weirder. So congratulations over to the people over at the Game Band, the developer that makes it, for just keeping people on their toes and keep surprising people and just making it just a unique thing like nothing else on the internet. So yeah, Blaseball. Go Tacos.
Go Tacos.
All right, now let's talk about all the Pokemon. Get on your feet and be united. Whoa.
Whoa, ho, ho,
ho. Feel united? Feel united.
Yes, feeling united. Right, so, last year? Not last year they announced this thing?
Oh, 2 years ago, dude.
2 years ago.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So 2 years ago, Nintendo decided to dip their toes into a mobile arena and say, hey, you like League of Legends? You like that kind of style?
What about
Just
Pokemon?
Pokemon.
Yeah, what about Pikachu?
What about all the other, I think there's only like 12 Pokemon in the game that you can choose from?
Right now, so far.
So far. There'll be more to come that you can play as. But there's more like in the game that you can't play as. But there's like Pokemon fodder, basically.
Yeah.
So
Pokemon creeps, I believe they're called.
so
You go to
I
the
guess that's
jungle
where I
and you
should
fight
start.
creeps.
Where's my base knowledge of a MOBA?
Yeah.
I have passing knowledge, even though I played League of Legends fantasy League of Legends team last year. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I enjoyed it. I came in last, but I enjoyed it. Actually got me to this year download the League of Legends Wild Rift mobile game. Side note, I downloaded it to try and get myself familiar with MOBA because Pokemon Unite was coming out. And I was like, I should at least get some kind of baseline for what I'm getting myself into.
Right.
So when the trailer came out last year, one of my first comments was, I know what that game is. I can recognize that game because I recognize the fundamentals of what Pokemon is. And I can recognize that if I defeat more enemies, I can evolve, level up, and learn more moves and become a stronger Pokemon.
Yeah.
I understood that concept. And at the core, that's more or less what it is. You control a Pokemon, not like trainer style where you're trying to tell it what to do. You physically control the movements of a Pokemon, and you go around the arena attacking other different Pokemon around there that are there as Banta fodder, but also the different Pokemon that you're facing against. So you don't get points by killing, knocking him out, fainting, destroying. You don't get points like towards the score of defeating other Pokemon. You get points by defeating all the other random Pokemon and putting them into circles around their side of the arena. The more nodes you control, the higher your score is and the more you win. They're all capped at 10-minute matches. So you won't get into the 24 half-hour long matches where you're just grinding back and forth and no one's going to win until like one team finally decides to all attack at once and like work as a team instead of trying to solo it.
Right.
But it's fun.
Okay.
It kind of has the same vibe currently as Animal Crossing did because because it launches today, everyone's on the same level. Everyone has the exact same Pokemon to start with. As you level up yourself, your trainer, you'll get access to more Pokemon that you can eventually unlock and play as. Now, I did note that this is a free-to-play game. That being said, there are microtransactions in that game.
That's putting it extremely lightly.
Yes, there's less microtransactions and more. Do you want this Pokemon to play right now? Well, you can probably grind out some coins to eventually unlock it, or you could pay your $20 right now and unlock it instantly.
Yeah. I mean, we already went over this when we talked about it with as pertains to Genshin Impact, but yes, if you are somebody who has addictive personality and maybe would be trapped by a game that really encourages you to spend real life money, this might not be a good idea for you to download it. So just know that this is borderline predatory, especially for a game that's aimed directly towards kids.
Yeah, because there are some popular Pokemon, Lucario being one of them.
Right.
Immediately hidden, well, not hidden, but you can't play with them, but you can immediately on the front page of the store, hey, you want to have access to Lucario? Click here and buy now.
Yeah, another potentially nefarious part of this that is getting a lot of talk today on the internet is people are complaining that the items are essentially pay to win. You earn them from battles, but you can also buy them straight up. So there's an argument that if somebody just has spare money, they can just buy a bunch of health boosts or attack boost items and just be good, be better because they spent the money on it.
Yes, there are special X's, attack X,
Mm-hmm.
defense X, hyper potions that you can equip to use during the
Yeah.
game.
It's
There
just
is a
yeah.
cooldown meter for it.
It's disappointing when you consider that a lot of other MOBAs, not the big ones, I think League and Dota also allow you to buy buff items, but some other MOBAs out there do not. And what you see mostly in free to play games is just cosmetic microtransactions. Here, there are also cosmetic transactions, but there are also game changing transactions
Mhm.
here happening as well. So just be aware of that because I think that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way.
There's also ranked and unranked matches, so you can play at your level
Right.
once you reach level 7, 8, I
Okay.
think. But also, as you level up your character, you can equip more stuff onto your Pokemon as well. So that is also, I won't say barrier,
Mm-hmm.
but
Potentially.
potential barrier. I
Do
think
you?
they all open up at level 12, and then I
Okay.
only played for like an hour or two, and I got up to 6 and 7.
Okay.
So
Not too
they
bad.
move fast. The games
Uh.
move fast because they're kept at 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's nice.
You can get like 4 games in an hour, 4 or 5
Yeah.
games in an hour.
I'll just say real quickly. So I did not play this myself yet, but I did watch about 20 minutes of somebody playing it. So I got an idea more or less of what this thing is.
Mm-hmm.
I probably won't dip into it. But do you think this is something you're going to play for like a couple weeks and drop off of? Or do you think this is potentially something you could really see yourself getting into?
I will tell you at the end of the year.
Okay. Well, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, what do you think right now? Like, are you enjoying it enough to? Do you have like a grinding goal? Is there another Pokemon you want to unlock, or like, do you have like?
So it does the smart gameplay tactic, depending on how you range smart, of having daily and weekly goals.
Right, right, right.
So there is incentive to
Mm.
continuously play. You can reach all those goals within half hour, like minimum.
Sure.
Because I think it's if you win 3 matches, you win all in a row. That's half hour. You can you can accomplish all the other goals within them by that time.
But what about you specifically? What do you think? Do you think about your future about here this game?
I think it'll actually get me to play the Switch more
Hmm.
than I normally do right now. Because right now I use it for Ring Fit Adventure and Pokemon Snap, and Pokemon Snap has slowly been dying on my gameplay.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're 10-minute matches means I could pick it up and play for half hour while I'm watching game or TV or something, and then put it back. Kind of what I feel like the Switch was designed for, but it's not necessarily the games that I have for the Switch. I don't like to play that. I like to sit down for an app for 2 hours, 3 hours, and
Right.
play story-based games. So that's what I'm saying. I'll tell you at the end of the year if I'm still playing or not.
Sure.
Because
Well,
it has exactly what I'm looking for in 10-minute bursts of getting a game in.
yeah.
And I like the fact that it's kept at 10 minutes. I like the fact that
Yeah.
Pokemon, you can look at it, either identify like, oh, I know what this move is because
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing it for, what are we on, the 25th anniversary of Pokemon now?
Yeah, exactly. So
25
look,
years?
so everybody, I say look forward to the season finale of season 5 of the Media Boat podcast, where Mike goes pro Pokemon Unite player, and we don't never see him again.
I don't think I'd go that far because I do have vacations planned where I don't plan on taking my Switch. I have a
Fair
feeling
enough.
like because of that, I will. Well, I mean, I'm going to have to break
Take a break
my
from it.
quote unquote streak of playing consecutive.
Right.
And when that does happen, I do tend to fall off of getting back to games.
Yeah.
But it's like I've yet to finish Horizon Zero Dawn, even though I only have one mission left. I'm at the end game. I just
Almost
haven't finished
there.
it yet.
Fair enough. Well, I'm just glad to hear that they did a good job of doing a Pokemon plus MOBA. even if the microtransaction stuff's a little on the shadier side. But hey, what do you expect?
I mean, it gives me exactly what I want.
Yes, I'm sure it does.
Pokemon MOBA,
Yeah.
easy to understand. New island, new professor, which it happens with
Mm.
every single game.
Yeah.
But in terms of a quality product, I was watching some other people stream it as well. I did see some frame rate drops, especially on some
Yeah.
on the free menu, where it's trying to get people to load in.
I noticed that as well. And I know
Uh,
some people were having some lag issues because, of course, as any Super Smash Brothers Ultimate player will tell you, it's those damn people using Wi-Fi. So yeah, until everybody gets their OLED docks with the Ethernet port, it'll probably be a little patchy online.
Yep, probably patchy. I did like that there's a card. They brought back the card system.
Yeah.
You can dress up your player. You can create your player card like you could in Pokemon X and Y.
I'm telling you, make that its own game. I just want to, put my trainers in fun costumes and stuff without having to play a MOBA. Is that so much to ask?
Yes.
Is that too much?
Might be a bit of a doc. I'm not sure yet, but your player name that you choose is counted against all players. So if you're not playing right now, and if you don't have like your own specific username that you play on,
oh, you might have to go get it.
Go get it. You might have to choose a different name.
Yeah,
something with numbers.
Taken.
Because as I tend to do whenever I start a new game, I try and name my player Awesome. So it's like,
didn't
hey,
get Awesome
that's
in time.
Awesome. That guy's awesome. Unfortunately, Awesome was taken.
Well,
I went with my guaranteed backup plan.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Well, can't wait to hear
that Pokemon games when it says, "Hey, beautiful," or "This is beautiful." It's like, yeah.
Can't wait to hear about the ongoing adventures of
on
Pokemon Trainer
Unite,
Beautiful.
It's just someone named Beautiful, and it looks like Doctor. Because that is very me on brand.
Great. Well, cool. That's Pokemon Unite. You can get that on Switch now. Mobile version later this year? ?
Yes, mobile version will be coming in September.
Okay.
You can transfer your save data from the Switch to mobile.
Cool.
So you can play on the go.
Nice.
You just need to either use your Nintendo ID login or the Pokemon login, and it will connect from your Switch to your mobile without losing anything. And all your saves will be the same.
Great.
But that will be in, I forget, it's either early September, sometime in September or late August. But yeah, it should come by the end of the first season. The first season right now is scheduled for 70 days, I believe.
Okay.
And then they're doing that too as another way of getting money out of you, is having season passes, battle passes.
Right.
Which you need to re-up in order to get everything. Unless you don't want to and just want to play for free. That's also fun too.
It's an option.
Yep, that's an option.
All right. Well, cool.
But yeah, as for the actual characters you play on, good variety. Lots of grass, lots of flying. I think fire is the main heavy. But it's pretty fun. I currently like playing as Talonflame, just because I can use Brave Bird and Aerial Ace and play. Yeah,
love a Talonflame.
Super fast. Him and then Venusaur leveling up because he's a freaking tank. But I will have more fun with it and might have more thoughts on it next week. But I think my thoughts on it right now are pretty good.
Cool. Yeah, I think so.
And like I said, the more I play with it, maybe we'll see at the end of the year. Nothing guaranteed.
Maybe.
But we'll see.
We'll see. All right. Well, I didn't play anything. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, but I swear I will finish Horizon Zero Dawn eventually.
Yes. Keep an eye out on twitch.tv/MediaBoat for that when he does that.
But yeah,
Um,
hey, that's the end here. So let's plug
yeah.
away.
In the meantime, you can join us here at the Media Boat Podcast every week. If you want to see us in video form, that's at YouTube. Search Media Boat Podcast and you'll find our page, see our archived videos. Click the bell for notifications when we have new ones. You know the drill. You can also listen to the audio version on the podcast on your podcast app of choice, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anything you want. We're there. Just search Media Boat Podcast. You can also find us in social media channels such as Twitter. Our handle is at Media Boat Cast. Facebook, search Media Boat Podcast to find our page. If you want to ask us questions, comments, anything you want to know about us, you can email us directly, mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit mediaboatpodcast.com for an archive of our episodes there as well. And I think that'll do it. Twitch.tv, as I mentioned, /mediaboat to see him stream. Other than that, I think that will do it for next week. I think next week we might have some thoughts about, let's see, what. Actually, I don't know. I don't know what we'll talk
Next
about
week,
next
I
week.
believe, is going to be a solo cast.
Yeah, possibly a solo. We'll have to figure something out. If it's not a solo, we might record later or earlier. We'll figure something out.
Yep,
So
might just do an audio only cast at some point.
yeah, or something. We'll figure something out.
We'll figure something out.
Alrighty. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
Yep, we'll be back next week because this train don't stop running.
Never.
Never. We'll be back with more thoughts, more news, and more shenanigans next week.
All right. See y'all.
Okay, bye.
Bye.